So for this recording, I'm going to go through and build out this project, which was our forest fires. I'm going to start with making a copy of this. Every student will have received their own copy, so that's how this will look. All right, so the first thing we look at is that there is this data set that's on the University of California, Irvine. They've got this document that is a data set related to forest fires that is meant to do some regression machine learning process. We're going to use it to just do some basic visualizations. So in that, I've copied the data to a spreadsheet, and I've got the data now into a CSV. So the first thing we do is import pandas, pandas as PD. I should see a little green check. Create a data frame. Data frame is equal to pd.read_CSV. And then in quotes, the URL. And I'm going to just add a df.head, even though that's going to happen here in a second, just so that I can see the data existed. Got a green check. I've got some data that looks great. It says, what is the type? So type of my df is a pandas data frame. That, again, pandas has two types. You're either a data frame or you're a series. Again, a series is a one-dimensional, data frame is a two-dimensional. Show the first 5 rows. We just did that. Let's see the head. And then we can see some information about how this is all related to conditions that make for forest fires. So again, what is the temperature of the air? What is the temperature of relative humidity? What is these FFMC and DMC? These are related to moisture contents, and yeah. So you don't need to know this. We're not using this to like do any real understanding. We're just knowing that these are columns of data that we'll work with. Display the tail, df.tail. Tail should tell me how many total rows am I working with. All right, 516. All right, cool. So I see that that's pick any 3 columns. And so I want to do data frame, pick 3 columns. I need to make a list, so it's a list like that. I want to see the month, the day, and the temp. I see that I've filtered my data frame. It shows me the head and the tail. I see that it's filtered with just those 3 columns showing. Great. Display only series where the wind was above 5. So here's my data frame. Filter it where in the data frame of wind is a column, lowercase wind, is greater than 5. I run that, and I can see just by looking, everything looks like it's above 5. If I lower, flip that, looks like everything is below. That looks like that's working. Great. Then it says, sort the column, sort this highest to lowest. So I can say, data frame of, let's say, sort values by FFMC, needs to be in quotes because again it's a column, highest to lowest, ascending is equal to false. Okay, so it looks like my FFMC in working its way down. That looks great. It says to do the same thing now with sort the temp. Highest to lowest, so ascending is true. In the temp, it's lowercase temp. Temp starts at 2.2, works its way up to 33 Celsius. Find the series with the lowest and highest wind speeds. So what I want to do is start with the lowest. So data frame, where in the data frame wind is equal to the max of df of wind. You can see the max is 9.4. And then same thing for the lowest. Copy this. Min shows me the lowest wind speed was 0.4. So again, I'm looking in my data frame for where in the column of wind the values are equal to the minimum of the column of wind. Okay. So again, then showing me the entire data frame right? It's not just showing me the wind column. If I wanted to, I could just say, show me just the wind column. Tells me that that wind, the minimum was that. But I don't need to do that. I want to see the entire series. Find the entire series. All right. Then it says, find the DMC for where the fire had the largest impact. So again, copied that. Where the area is equal to the max of area, tells me that this is the instance of the most, and it says, what is the DMC for that particular instance? Add on the column I'm looking for, DMC, and it should show it to me as 121.1. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Display only the series where the month is August. So df of df month is equal to aug. See that aug, that looks great. So now it says, now we're into some sort of graphing, right? So plot something. So let's make sure we've got our libraries. Do a matplotlib here. And it says, make a scatter plot. So plt.scatter. And what is my x and y? I can see that if I hover over scatter, let me run this real quick. It tells me that I'm missing two. Right, so the documentation says scatter has an x and a y. It might have a shape, it might have a color, it might have a marker type, or a color map. All these things are part of that. In our case, we're just going to give it an x and a y. So my x is equal to, it says DMC, df.dmc. Y is equal to df.ffmc. Let's do a plt.show, see if that works before we do anything else. All right, cool. So I've got my chart. So now it says, let's give it some labels. plt.x label is equal to DMC. plt.y label is equal to ffmc. And our plt.title can just be DMC and compared to ffmc. Great. So I've got my labels. That looks great. That is a functional scatter plot. That looks great. So next thing says make a 2D histogram. And if I look at the code here for making a 2D histogram, it kind of will look like a heat map. Right? If I do this right, it'll look kind of like a heat map. So I've got a 2D hist, plt.2D hist. And I'll just copy that line. That looks like it will get me started. 2D hist. What is my x? In this case, it's actually going to be our data frame's x value. And I think it's uppercase. We can confirm. Yep, uppercase. And what is my y? Is data frame dot y. And you can leave the bins 50-50. That's okay. It looks kind of strange. If you take the bins out entirely, it'll just auto bin and looks like that. If I want to change the colors, right? This is the color PLT color map of jet. I can do reds, something like that. I noticed on the code over here that I see that it also has a color bar to give me that little legend. So I can say, whoop. Great. So I've got my legend, I've got my table. That looks really, really good. All right. So the next thing we did was show a bar graph of how many fires occurred per day. So to do that, I'm just going to look at the day column. And let's look at it with just a value counts. So we can see how much is occurring per day. So Sunday 95 is kind of our high day. And then, yeah, great. So we want to make a chart. So I can say, we have Seaborn already installed. So let's do a Seaborn plot. Seaborn has a bar plot. And I can say my x is going to equal for now, let's just do df.day.valueCounts. And my y, I'll do the same thing. Y df.day.valueCounts, and run that. I see that it does this, but I see that the labels are the same, so that's not exactly what we want. So our x actually needs to be the name of those, so it's the index.index. And so we see Sunday, Friday, that looks like that data matches up to our value counts that we had before, right? So I can continue to see this, print this, so we make sure we see that. Sunday looks like it's highest, Friday, that looks like that's working, but now we want to change the order to be the actual order of the week. So order equals, and then again it's a list, so we're going to put it in a brackets as our list, sun, mun, to, wed, third, by, sat. Okay, so come back in, make these into strings, and then run that, and see that my chart Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday looks great. Great. So that's that. If I wanted to add labels, awesome, right? So SNS dot set your labels, right? You can set a X label is equal to day of the week. My Y label is number of fires that occurred, and my title SNS dot set title. So again, you can see that the syntax between matplotlib up here with my title X label is a little bit different than in Seaborn, but not dramatically. And this label is obviously the occurrences of fires by weekday. Okay. Seaborn has X label set X. Let's call this my chart, and then there we go. So I've got my labels, that looks right. Then we said to do 2 graphs of your own. So I'm going to pick just a random graph. Maybe I do a box plot, sure. So this is what the box plot looks like. If I paste in, I see that that's a grid. My data frame, I want to keep my data frame as my existing data frame. And my Y that I want to show as my box plot, how about we do that as the temp? So this is again looking at the temp range. I mean, it's not telling me a whole lot, but that's okay. Kind of where it is, what's the high and the low, where there is. So you could do that. You could do temp. Let's see if we can get a couple different values here. Temp and wind. Let's just keep, yeah, that looks great. So temp. I can do another type. Let's look for something else. Let's do a bubble. Maybe we can do something here with a bubble that will be pretty cool. So we have an SNS scatter plot is the code for our bubble with Seaborn. Oh, I like that with the multiple colors. Okay. So on our scatter, and then we say plt.show. So what is our data? Data is our df of, let's look at our x, is our x, df y can be our y. For the size, let's do that being the area of the fire, df area. See what that looks like without that right now. And then our color can be df of temp. And let's just run that and see if that gives us anything. Okay, so I can see where the x's are, I'll see the area is that, and then the color, and then see if we can do a color bar, plt.colorbar. Don't know that it'll work on this. Okay, cool. So we see this must be our temp. No, color is the temp, yep. So the higher gray, you can mess with this, right? So this could be reds like we did before. The higher the color map, the more hot the fire was, or maybe I don't know exactly what the data set implies, whether the temp is the fire's temperature, the day of the year temperature, I don't really know, but that'll get us going. And that's the end of this project, right? So we've gone through, we've done a number of things with our data, seen the data, looked at it in different ways, filtered it in a number of different ways, and then started to chart it using matplotlib and then also using Seaborn. If you have any questions, let me know.